Busy day today?
No, I actually, it's been a busy week, and today I decided to try and have a little sleep in. It worked, sort of.
Okay. Great. I'm glad I was able to catch you so we could pursue the interview. So again, thank you so much for that. So I'm gonna dive right into it.
Right on.
Okay. You play the character Detective William Murdoch of the Murdoch Mysteries. That's available on Hulu. Over the years, what has it been like playing this amazing character?
Well, it's had its up and downs for different reasons. Certainly never artistically. We've had a very strong. We've had different writing teams, but they've always been very strong, and sort of the brand of the show, the type of feeling throughout every episode, and then the continuous arcs of the show have been great. There have been some logistic up and downs. We were on one network when we started out, and then they canceled us at a certain point, and then we got picked up by another network, and then that really is when things took off. But we always had really strong support internationally. We knew that the show was working. We knew that there were fans, far and wide that wanted to see the show. So it was good to know, sort of in the back of our minds, no matter what was happening on the sort of production end, that what we were doing was good and in demand. And so that's always been a plus. Because I tell you, when we started, I didn't know what I was in for. There were no period shows back in 2007, like none. So I didn't expect it to go very far, but here we are.
Oh, great, great. Because the 14th season premiered in February. Without giving anything away, would you like to share any new attention-grabbing scenes that the viewers could tune into and get excited about?
Well, this year, what we did, we kick off the year. Obviously, we season 14 was shot during COVID, so there were some limitations and some creative adjustments we had to make. And then certainly it was a smaller season. We did 11 episodes, but we still had all the same amount of writing, creative juice and people. So I kind of like to say that it was like a super concentrated season. And we kick off the first two episodes. I got to direct, which was fantastic. It was a bit of an adjustment again with COVID. And then I was directing two episodes at a time. That was a first for me. Typically I would only do one, for the past sort of during the past 10 years. And we had people like Charlie Chaplin that were introduced. And the idea is the transition from these vaudeville guys, these touring comedian vaudeville guys that have different sort of stand-up monologist sort of routines and comedy routines. And then, transitioning like we all have to do during these times with these changes happening, transitioning to motion picture, to film. So, you have people saying, oh, that'll never catch on. And then you have these forward-thinking people that are out on the fringes of touring comedy, and they're already doing something very experimental, and they adapt to film. And so got to do an episode of that featured Buster Keaton, Stan Laurel, that became, infamous with Stan Laurel and Hardy. And then Charlie Chaplin as well, who's really spearheaded a lot of this, even to the point of being chased by the law and stuff like that. So it was fun to kick season 14 off with that.
Okay, great. Speaking of COVID, I got a question, but I'm going to come back to that. I want to get to the point where you mentioned you directed two episodes. What was it like working behind the scene as opposed to being in front of the camera? Is it a major difference? What's the experience like?
Well, I think in a way, if you look at each day that you film, pretty much everything but a couple of minutes worth of your day is really behind the camera. You're facilitating those few seconds. It's kind of like football. You've got days and weeks and months of training and drills and all of this ancillary type training that you do, and the clock's only running for a certain amount of time. It's very similar. So I think the transition for me, certainly I always admired the director role from when I was a kid, just watching how this person would integrate, technology and technological skill with the artistic side, merge them together. And this person would facilitate all the different departments that make a show. And that person had to be really knowledgeable and a strong communicator. And so I always observed that role with admiration and a sort of used it to filter, and watch the good ones and not just how they were on set, but what the end product would be. And so I think it was an easy transition for me to make, because the lead actors are often people that are doing a similar type of work where they're basically assimilating all the information, and they're really, all of the departments work through them in the same way. So I think that formula is often, if you have the gumption, I think a lot of lead actors can transition, and oftentimes it's a good formula.
Oh, great, great. And the series has been on for 14 years. That's a long time. Do you get a sense of gratification, or what type of accomplishment is that to have that longevity for a TV series? That's a long time.
It's a really long time. It's a funny thing, you forget, some days you forget, and then there's other days where you're like, damn, I can't believe I've spent most of my adult life doing, one project, which is super rare for an actor. It's a huge blessing. And then I think too, for the end user, for the audience, to have as much as they want to be able to watch, and be able to sit down and binge 14 seasons of a show. That's a lot of content. And then it speaks to the quality of the idea, of the concept of the show. And it's not lost on me. There are days where it's like, oh man, can I really do 10 pages today? I'm not 35 anymore. So it's some days it's tough, but just sort of knowing that you're part of something that's become a huge sort of cultural phenomenon, certainly for us in Canada, and a big export. And we're really proud of. That's not lost on me. I'm very proud of that, and it's not something I'm going to walk away from willingly. I'll tell you that much.
Oh, great. That's great. And earlier you mentioned COVID. Murdoch Mysteries was one of the first series to start back production, and you guys turned to set. What type of experience was that for you? Was it a lot of modification, changes on the set? Can you talk about that a little?
Well, the regular part of your day would feel a lot just like everybody else felt. We would just like, okay, we put our masks on, we try and keep our distance from each other, and we have to do that. But for us, we sort of had to get some very strong protocols and some consulting happening to create these very exacting protocols of having hand sanitizing stations everywhere. Certain trash cans were for certain things. The entire crew was split into pods all over the place, and those pods wouldn't intersect. And we had to create walls in the studio area so certain people wouldn't take the wrong hallway and end up in the wrong area. And then we did pretty well with that. It was only right up to the very last second that the actors would just pop off their mask when we roll, and then everything would pop back on, and then we'd go back to normal. And the only real adjustment that we had to make story-wise was just how close two people would get. Or, for instance, if there was any large background scenes, or we shot a midway sort of scenario in the first episode, and that we had to have very limited amount of background players, because not only would you have to hire all the background players, but you need all the makeup people, all the hair people, the extra wardrobe people to process all these guys. And since we're outside, our crew doubles because you're now lugging twice as much equipment. So we had to observe all of that and show restraint and try and stack people and just optically make it look like a lot more people were there than actually were. But aside from that, it looked pretty much like a normal day, except, you know, at check-in, we'd show up in the morning and you have your temperature taken. And then in the following weeks, we implemented, you know, testing for everyone. So then, you know, you'd be tested once a week and all that. But it, you know, like I said, it's not hugely different than all of our average day is right now, unless you know, you've been vaccinated. You still have to be careful not to be a carrier and so on. But it's been pretty much the same as it is for everyone. It's just that very last second, pull the mask off, and then everybody that's right in that immediate circle of the actors, they would have double protection in the way of a shield, just to add protection for themselves, and that's it.
Okay, I'm glad you guys was able, you know, to return to television. I know the fans and viewers are as well, so I'm glad y'all was able to get through
There
that.
was a lot of pressure, I will say that, Aaron. There was a ton of pressure because, you know, we were sort of the first back that I knew of at the time. And because, you know, our show's on a public network in Canada, you know, that fact's not lost on me, you know. So people were watching us, and if anything did go awry, it would not have been great for us, for the industry at large. And, you know, people like Tom Cruise even spoke up and said, hey, listen, we need to be really careful here. People are depending on us. You know, people are sitting at home, and yeah, they're playing records, but they're watching TV and they need content. And, you know, it's not like we're rocket scientists, but people are counting on us. We need to do it right. We need to be responsible. And so you can feel that pressure.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I'm just gonna veer the interview just a little bit. You know, I know you have a great family. You've been in the industry for decades and decades, and you have gained much success. What keeps you motivated and inspired to just keep going on and just pursuing what you love to do?
I guess, well, my wife's a real go-getter, and I tell you, if I slack off at all, she lets me know. but you know, I have a lot of goals myself. I sort of feel like, you know, those decades have gone by, and there are things that I've wanted to do since the beginning, since, you know, those childhood dreams, different things that you want to accomplish in your field. And then later on, as an adult, you sort of filter those out and you distill that down to, you know, those 2 or 3 things that you want to do. And I still want to get to that. So I figure everything that I do, I put as much effort into it as I can. I do as great a job as I can. And then I'll hopefully be able to leverage all of that into those opportunities. For example, you know, just really working through the effort that it takes to direct and be the lead actor on a show, in order to get a lot of directing experience so that I can take my directing out onto other projects, which is what I'm doing right now. So that's why you and I have been having a hard time connecting. But, you know, hopefully then that'll mean I'll be able to go on and do bigger and you know, projects that I've been looking forward to doing since I was, you know, a young buck first getting into showbiz.
Do you have any up and coming projects you've been working on that you'd like to share?
Doing right now, I'm doing a movie with Vortex that will probably be on Lifetime, that's called 12 Treats of Christmas. And we're doing kind of a twist on one of these sort of heartsy Christmas movies. There's a lot of things that are going to be different. For instance, our lead woman is biracial. She's fabulous. Corey Lee is going to be doing that. And she's actually done a good amount of Hallmark movies as well. And I've brought a bunch of very heavy hitter comedians, people like Deb McGrath, Colin Mockery, who you may know from Whose Line Is It Anyway? And we have a newcomer, a little 9-year-old gal named Bianca, who's Bianca Sass, who's just doing a fabulous job for us. And it's going to be different. And at the same time, there's still going to be all the things in it that, you know, people come to love at holiday time.
Oh, great. And speaking of, like you just mentioned, a young actor, and, you know, not only just that, I know it's been like difficult for a lot of people, maybe in the industry, like actors, and even outside of that. Do you have any words of encouragement for those individuals who's looking to have the tenure such as you did and just keep moving forth with their dream and vision?
I think the biggest lesson that I ever learned ever in the entire sort of 30 some odd years I've been doing this is when I started directing it, and it was completely, I didn't see it coming, is I was in casting sessions, auditioning other actors. And I kind of felt like, oh man, that guy's so great. Oh, and that's my friend David. Oh, and this is so-and-so. And I wanted to hire everybody. They're all good. They're all great. If you got auditions, you're doing it right. It's just a matter of fit. It's really all it comes down to. Like, you're good, you're great, but it's like a puzzle. The wrong piece just doesn't fit in that puzzle. Like, you know, whether it's your age or your hair color or your certain sort of vibe, you know, as it fits in with the other rest of the cast, it's kind of like a house of cards. And you know, I know just as well as they do that we could do a bang up job and so on, but sometimes there's just a physicality, there's just a vibe that you bring with you that those parts you can't change, and that's okay. That's what makes you you. And if you're auditioning, you're doing a great job. It's just a matter of fit. And I tell you, that took the weight off my shoulders for everything that I was auditioning for from then on, because I was like, oh well, yeah, I just need to do the job, and I'm either right or I'm not.
Great. And just with the Murdoch Mysteries, are you a part of like the casting or anything, the hiring process for the actors with so much longevity? And because you are part of the directing and producing, so do you have your hand in that part of the, you know?
A little bit.
Okay.
A little bit. There have been times where actually my experience and relationships with certain actors, because you know our budgets aren't huge and stuff like that, so sometimes some of these people they have huge successful careers, and we're certainly not going to get them with money. So somebody's got to sort of, you know, reach out and say, hey, do you think you might want to do a turn on the show? We'll treat you right. We'll take care of you. It's not going to be great money, but here's the pluses, and so sometimes that's my job. And then, you know, there are other times where it's a matter of, hey, what do you think about this actor for this part? We've got this key part coming up, and what are your thoughts? Have you worked with them, and so on? So it's just a matter of, you know, everybody weighing in, and then we make a decision from there. And then sometimes it's weighing in on directors too. You know, having worked with many over the years, it's like, hey, we haven't had them on the show. You've worked with them. What are your thoughts? And stuff like that. So I get a little bit of quality control work that I have to do as an exec on the show as well. And most of that, honestly, is on the floor on the day. I'm kind of like the police a little bit. It's like I'm the Murdoch police, where it's like, yeah, no, we don't do it that way. Or, oh, how you remember in such and such episode, we already committed to this person saying that this is their aunt and uncle, and so we got to make sure to stick to that, or whatever. If somebody's accent isn't really working that day, they sound too like, you know, urban today. Well, you know, I'm kind of the guy that's got to come in and go, hey, listen, can you? So, you know, most of my work is really on the floor. I'm kind of like the last line of Murdoch defense a little bit sometimes. And sometimes that's fun, but sometimes it's not. So I don't want to be that guy some days, but sometimes I have to be. Can you believe that lead actor telling me what to do? Yeah.
I definitely understand. And Yannick, before we close the interview, because this has been great. I know we've been trying, like, for 5 days, we've been connecting.
Yeah.
Moving on this. So I'm glad you stayed in contact with me since, wow, we've been trying to get this going. So would you like to add anything else regarding the Murdoch Mysteries or anything that we haven't talked about?
We've got a lot of ancillary things coming up. We have an Audible podcast that sort of parallels the show, but you can jump right in if you haven't watched the show or if you're a fan already. And it's an ongoing series of podcasts that are Murdoch's memoirs, his diary, secret diaries stuff, which is a lot of fun, and you can find that on Audible. Certainly on Audible Canada, we premiered the launch of Audible in Canada. We're also doing a Murdoch AR experience with MetaStage that's coming up soon. And that basically is an immersive game where you go in, because a lot of people think, oh, I figured it out. I figured out who's the killer. I know who's right and who's wrong in this thing. Well, let's put your money where your mouth is. You have to immerse yourself in this game with me as a augmented reality figure. They've captured me in they know me better than I do now with this digital capturing, and you solve a mystery, and you have to go through the process of ticking off the clues, and it is hard. There are tons of variables, and it's pretty challenging. So I'm looking forward to that being launched. I guess that's about it for now.
Yeah. Hey, this has been great. I just want to thank you again for taking out the time out your busy schedule and pursue this interview. I really thank you so much, Yannick.
Thank you so much, and look out for season 15. We got some extra special surprises surrounding that, and we'll be talking about that very soon.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Eric.
All right, you're welcome. Bye-bye.
Hold your head up high to the sky, so high as the days go by. I promise everything